Hi, everyone, and welcome back to this edition of Brave Briefings, a place where men and women can come and share their ideas on what we can do to be brave, to stop harassment, and to make the world a better place, a safer place for men and women, a world devoid of harassment and sexual and gender based violence. So, are you brave? I certainly hope so, because today I have another brave gentleman with me, John Kenny. Hi, John.
Hello, how are you?
Great, thanks. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great, thank you. Would you like to tell our viewers a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am the relationship guy. I'm based in the UK and I am a relationship coach and I help people that struggle to find connection and close, intimate relationships. So maybe they've struggled with certain types of attachment problems. So they don't really know how to connect with someone at a deeper level. Maybe they become anxious or they avoid those types of connections. Perhaps they have had serious issues in the past which have caused them to form certain relationship patterns. So they keep repeating the same types of problems over and over again by the people they attract or the people that are attracted to. Maybe they carry certain beliefs about themselves as far as relationships are concerned, whether they're worthy of love, um, or whether they believe that relationships are unsafe spaces. And I help people to understand where they come from as far as themselves and their relationships are concerned, so that they then can find ways to have healthier relationships, bring that intimate relationship into their life that they're looking for.
So perhaps they're not brave.
Perhaps they're very, very scared.
Hi, everyone. I am Lois, your friend for forgiveness from Walking Without Skin. And I want everybody to be brave. So, brave is about boundaries, respect, agreement, values, equality, empowerment. And we want everybody out there to be brave. So, John, what do you think we can do to be brave?
I think the whole of the word brave is very all the letters, all the things that you kind of liken them to, and what it stands for. All of them are very, very important when it comes to our relationships. I'll start with the B, and I'll go for boundaries. Really, I think, especially with the work that I do, people find it really hard to set boundaries with relationships and with other people if they come from a space where that wasn't allowed when they were growing up. And I think it's really important that people understand that they are allowed to set boundaries, that they don't need to accept certain behaviors, that they can address certain behaviors. And it's about learning within ourselves to be able to have the confidence to be brave, to step up and say, actually, that doesn't work for me and this is not allowed in my life. And if that's going to continue, then this relationship needs to end. In
How
in
does
in
one
some cases,
So
sorry.
how does one get that confidence to be able to stand by their boundaries?
Yeah, and that's the thing, because as children we learn the boundaries of relationships, and if we are in situations that maybe it's been toxic, unhealthy, abusive, neglectful, whatever, an unhealthy set of rules that we've established as children, then we have a tendency to carry those into adulthood as well in our personal and intimate relationships. And then it can be quite difficult for us to find it within us to say, okay, well, it's not okay anymore for that to happen. So it's about understanding where you come from. It's understanding those ideas that you've got about yourself, what you've got about relationships, what's acceptable, what's unacceptable, and then thinking about what's right for you. Is it right that you don't speak up? Is it okay that you allow people to treat you a certain way? Do you have within yourself a need to please or to not put yourself out of what you're used to? So when I when I when I think about these types of things, we are all trying to meet a specific need within ourselves, and unfortunately, that can be quite unhealthy And if we're not able to address that unhealthiness of it, then we'll keep doing the same things over and over and over again. So if my idea about myself is I'm not allowed to speak up, if I believe I'm going to be punished, sorry, comes my cat. If I believe that I'm going to be chastised or there are negative consequences, then I learn to act a certain way. And then to get that affection, the attention, whatever it is that I'm getting, that then meets the need within me. And then as I get older, I keep trying to meet that need over and over again. But if that comes from a maladaptive or unhealthy space, then I'm going to keep repeating the same types of problems over and over again. And I'm not going to really know how to step out of that space to do the best thing for me. And it's important I recognize what those are. So, you know, to look back and maybe understand what it is that you've decided about relationships, what have you decided about what you're worth in relationships, what you're allowed in relationships, and then deciding whether that's still right for you. Most people have a tendency not to address those types of things until they become crisis points, and then it becomes too much. And a lot of people don't even ever address it. They just go from one situation to the next, to the next, to the next, where they just keep finding themselves in the same types of situations. And it's not just about whether you are people pleasing and you're getting your need met by pleasing someone else. The opposite is also the same. You may have decided as a child that you weren't getting enough affection or attention. So therefore you decided to take more. So you became more empowered within yourself to say, well, okay, if you're not going to give it to me, I'm going to take it. And they'll become more like an abusive type person. You know, I don't really care how you feel. I need to get my needs met. So therefore I'm going to do whatever I can to get you to meet that need for me. And then we have this really unhealthy, toxic mix of people that have a tendency, unfortunately, to be on the similar energy, that they attract each other. And therefore, if I'm a people pleaser, I might have a tendency to attract people that like to take, because then I get my need met to make people happy, and they get their need met to take everything they can from me. And whatever shape or form that can be, that's generally when we find in the most extreme circumstances, that's when we find there's the abuse, the neglectful behavior, the manipulation, the gaslighting, all of that type of thing that leads to these really unhealthy relationships.
So actually what you're saying is that it starts with self-awareness, that you understand what triggers you, what makes you want to do the things that you do. So
Yeah.
it goes, one really has to go deep within before you can even understand why you have those boundaries or what those boundaries are.
Yeah. And again, we generally feel uncomfortable because it's not really us. You know, it's about understanding what your sense of your values are, you know, like you said, that self-awareness. What's good for me? What are my values? How do I see relationships? Do I see them as healthy, loving, caring spaces? Or do I see them that are things that are very painful and neglectful, and they don't last, and there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of fear associated? And again, if that's how I see relationships, unfortunately, that's how I tend to see I'm going to live relationships. So when we become aware of how we do relationships, we can then decide what we want to continue to do and what we need to change in order to have the loving and caring environment that we're really what we're looking for, because that's all we want as kids. You know, when we're born, we want to be looked after, we want love, we want connection. It's a basic human need to feel cared about, and this is why it causes so many problems for people when it doesn't exist, because your brain stays in survival mode your whole life, because you're not cared for, you're not nurtured, there's no compassion and understanding, and we then struggle to live with ourselves within relationships because we haven't learned how to connect in a healthy way. So yeah, to become really self-aware, what is it about you that you would like to change? What is about you that means that you're not putting your boundaries in place? what is it about you that accepts certain types of people or certain types of relationships in your life, and how you're going to change that.
And you mentioned values, so it's also understanding your values and how they link into your boundaries as well. and you haven't taught your cat boundaries.
She's very needy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, again, it's all of that, all the letters of the word brave, isn't it? It's about finding your space in all of those different things.
So what is one tip you can give people in order to establish those boundaries or those values?
Yeah, I think we know within ourselves if we feel unsettled with something. I think we know in ourselves if we're not very happy with something. And I think it's just making note of that. Because even though it might be something we've always done, it doesn't mean that we're okay with it. It doesn't mean that we're happy about it. It may be that we just get so used to it that our brain says, well, you know what this is like, let's just keep doing this. But you're not going to feel okay about it. And it's acknowledging your behaviours. Are you noticing patterns in the types of people that you have in your life? Do you keep feeling the same type of way? Do they keep treating you the same type of way? Is the result generally very similar? Do your friends and family always tell you that this person isn't good for you, but you still do it anyway? Those types of things, like you said, is that self-awareness. Am I aware of what I'm doing? Am I aware of what I'm getting from this relationship, the pattern that I'm repeating? So to keep your boundaries in place, if you're feeling uncomfortable with something's not quite sitting right with you, to listen to that, to explore that, to really understand what that means to you. And if it doesn't feel right, and you don't really want to be in that situation, or you don't want this thing to continue, or you just notice there's something that you really don't, you're really uncomfortable with, then to be able to step into yourself with those boundaries and say, okay, this is unacceptable to me. And if it continues, again, depending on the severity of it, I mean, there are certain things I would say if they happen straight away, you need to walk away. You just don't accept that as part of your life. Any type of abusive behavior, any type of controlling behavior needs to be walked away from immediately, because generally when people are exhibiting that type of behavior, you might say, oh, well, they've only done it once, I'll give them a chance. Oh, they've only, I'm sure they'll change. I'm sure this was just a one-off. And they'll usually tell you this is a one-off. I don't usually act like this, blah, blah, blah. But if they do it right, if they do it near the beginning of your relationship, it's just going to get worse. If they know they can push you into a certain space, they'll continue to keep pushing you because they know they can. And again, they're not doing...
Yeah, carry on.
Sorry, no, what were you going to say?
Then it's obviously authentically sharing your views with whoever it is that you're having those boundary problems with. Yeah.
And that can be in any type of relationship. And, some people are not going to want to hear it, but if they're not going to want to hear it, that's okay. If it doesn't work for you, it's okay that it doesn't work for you. But if they want to keep you in a certain space, they'll do everything they possibly can to keep you in a certain space because it works for them. And that's where you need to draw the line and say, no, this is not a good space for me. I'm walking away from this, or I'm going to make sure that there is something in place for me which keeps me away from this unhealthy behavior.
So what you've been speaking about is what I can do, what we can do about boundaries. But how do we teach the other person about boundaries?
By setting boundaries, really. Yeah, if we set our own boundaries, then we'll create boundaries for them as well. And generally, unless people have got some kind of severe mental health problems, they know when to stop. And again, if this is an intimate relationship, then basically just don't be with them. You don't need to be there. If it's causing you that much of a problem, then you have a choice. Just to notice you've got a choice. You don't have to be in this relationship. But if it's a relationship that you are choosing to be in, if you set boundaries, then people will generally set their own boundaries based on where you are. So if I say to you, let's play football, 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 let's play football. And eventually you go, oh, goodness sake, John, okay, let's go play football. The next time I'm just going to say, okay, let's play football, 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 until I know, because I know you're going to do that. If you don't say yes, then I don't have the opportunity to keep going. I need to stop at some stage because it's not going to work. And by setting my boundaries, if you set your boundaries to say, no, John, I'm not playing football with you, I then know where I stand. And then that boundary is then in place. So then I can either ask you what you want to play. I can then go and play by myself, or I'll go and find someone else to play with.
Okay, so
because I need to stop.
In a domestic violence situation,
Mm.
the woman walks away from the abusive husband, and he gets into another relationship, and he just continues that behavior until that person walks away. So how do we teach him that that behavior is not acceptable? He's just not getting the message, even though these people are walking away from him.
Yeah, that's because they're so entrenched in their own way of doing relationships. They're entrenched in their own maladaptive and unhealthy relationship patterns. They're getting a need met by being abusive. They're getting their needs met by being manipulative, by being controlling, by being violent, whatever their kind of method of abuse is. And that's what they know. That's all they know. And it's bringing that to their attention. We need to bring to their attention that this is unacceptable behavior, not just walk away, but it's to say, this is unacceptable. You need to change, because we have a tendency to not, if we are people that find ourselves in abusive relationships over and over again, we don't really know how to address it with somebody else. We will have a tendency that eventually it gets too much and we'll leave, but we don't understand really the dynamic of what's going on. So if someone is in that state, they just really need to be told. It doesn't mean they're going to stop. All we can keep pointing out to them is the same thing. We need to get that message through to them that if you want a healthy, happy, loving relationship, the way you're going about this is not right. You're never going to experience the love and the fulfillment and the connection that you're actually craving by this behavior that you're exhibiting. You're scared. You're scared of intimacy. You're scared of not being in control. You're scared of being close to somebody. You're scared of putting yourself on the line to be loved. It all comes from a place of insecurity. And we need to...
about how we can deal with one individual. What about the bigger picture? How can we get all people who are dysfunctional, all people who've got toxic behaviors? How can we get the message through to everybody that this is not acceptable?
I think it's just making them face up to their own reality. People don't like to look at themselves on the whole and accept responsibility for the problems that they've got. We have a very blaming kind of culture, and that's what we're brought up with. It's you make me feel angry, you make me feel sad, you make me this, you make me that, and we learn all that as kids. And it's about being able to turn that on its head and say, actually, no, I don't make you do anything. You make this happen yourself. And I think if we have a broader message is to accept responsibility for your own issues. If you've got a repetitive cycle of being with people that you are abusing, that's you. That is you that's doing that. That's not anything to do with anybody else. You're not the victim here. You are the responsibility. And to make that message very clear. But as I said, it's very difficult to get people to look at themselves, especially if they're really entrenched in their own ideas of life and behaviors. But if we can get that message out there to people to say, don't blame everybody else. Start accepting responsibility for your own problems. If people are telling you not to do this, you need to not do that. If people are upset because of your behavior, it's because of your behavior. It's not because of anybody else. You can't keep blaming your past, but you need to understand your past and be responsible for your actions in the present. But most people don't. They blame everything else because that's all they've ever done.
So I think I have to add to the R of brave, I have to add responsibility.
Definitely. That's a big R, I think. Yeah. And that's the only way this is ever going to change, is when people turn around and look at themselves and say, I know that I'm doing this. I know that there's something within me which is causing this problem, if they actually see it as a problem. But again, that's the message we need to get across, and to stop assuming responsibility for someone else's actions. Again, if we are the people that are on the end of abuse, yes, it meets our need. Generally, we've got a bit of low self-worth and so low self-confidence, so we're going to absorb the responsibility generally anyway, because if someone's telling us it's our fault and we've always believed it's our fault, we'll keep believing it's our fault and we'll accept that. But what we need to do is say, actually, no, this isn't me, this is you. You need to sort yourself out. You need to stop doing this and look at yourself and take responsibility for your own actions. And I think that's the broader message that people need to know, is that, you know, if there's something going wrong in my life, it's going to have something to do with me.
Oh, got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks very much for your insights, John. I think they were very valuable. And everyone, if you want to work on your relationship, please do contact John. We'll put his information in the video, below the video. So do contact him. I'm sure you consult virtually as well, John.
I do indeed, yes. I've got a couple of clients dotted around the world at the moment.
Okay. So let's make sure that we can create brave relationships. So thank you, John, very much for joining us. Viewers, thank you very much for joining us. Please do tune in again to another edition of Brave Briefings, and do be bold, be brave, and fly free. Thanks very much. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.